Hello, my name is Edina Selesković. I'm an artist, public art creator, and guest lecturer at IEDC Bled. For over 2 decades, I've worked within the New York art scene before transforming my practice into something much broader, which is creating large-scale public installations that connect communities, institutions, and leaders across cultures. You see, over time, I've moved from asking what art is to actually what art does. And there comes my connection with IEDC Bled that has been deeply meaningful because the school understands that leadership is not only about analytical capacity, it is about perception, courage, imagination, and responsibility. Doesn't that sound like being an artist? The Art and Leadership program thus reflects this rare understanding that cultivating creative intelligence and visual intelligence is not only optional for leaders, but it is essential. As we look toward the future, we must acknowledge that we're no longer operating within predictable cycles. We're navigating ambiguity as sort of a permanent condition. Disruption is continuous, complexity is layered, and certainty, honestly, it's very rare. In such an environment, the artist mindset becomes profoundly relevant. And how exciting! You see, artists are trained to work without guarantees. We begin with uncertainty. We face a blank surface and must somehow construct meaning where none existed before. We learn to tolerate discomfort, to experiment, to fail visibly, to iterate. We're comfortable challenging inherent frames and redefining the narrative itself. There come the idea of future leaders. The future leaders also must develop the same capacity. In the past, you see, leadership was probably associated with authority and control. But I feel like in the future, leadership will increasingly depend on interpretation and sense-making and the ability to go through self-metamorphosis continuously. That requires imagination that is grounded in responsibility. We talk about at IEDC Bled how throughout history and art history, movements of crisis have produced extraordinary creative leaps. Periods of instability have actually forced societies to think their world in a different way, to reimagine their values and their system. And art has played a certain role in this process, not as decoration, but as a mirror of the society and as a catalyst for change. Today is no different. We're witnessing the rapid expansion of AI, automation, climate urgency, demographic shifts, sort of cultural polarization. Technology is accelerating much faster than our ethical frameworks. Information is abundant, but wisdom is scarce. The differentiating factor in this situation and in the coming decades will not be access to data, I feel. It will be the ability to perceive deeply, to connect patterns, to construct meaningful narratives that inspire collective action. None of us will be able to be inside of the box. This is where the artistic thinking becomes strategic, because artist practice is about seeing beyond the obvious. It is about questioning the assumption. It is about reframing problems before even approaching them. It is about translating complexity into symbolic language that others understand. Because art is the universal and primal form of communication. In my own public work, you see, I have witnessed how powerful shared symbols can be. When communities gather around a piece of art, they're not just observing, they're reflecting, they're projecting, they're interpreting. Art creates sort of a shared space where meaning can come to life. Leaders must learn to do the same thing within their organization and their space. In the future, I think successful organizations will not be those who can eliminate uncertainty, but those that can cultivate creative resilience. They will design cultures where experimentation is encouraged, where failure is not failure, where diverse perspectives are not tolerated but invited, where ambiguity is seen as a field of possibility rather than threat, and where meaning is more important than continuous growth. You see, there's another critical dimension in this process, and that is courage. Artists sign their names to unfinished exploration. They present their work that might be completely misunderstood. We take intellectual and emotional risks publicly. Future leaderships will probably require precisely this vulnerability. The courage to propose new models, the courage to pivot, the courage to admit that the previous paradigm no longer exists. Innovation, today, it's not a luxury. It is a responsibility. If the last 40 years at IEDC Bled, where global expansion and technological acceleration were about sort of continuous and mandated growth, maybe the next 40 years will be about integration, integrating intelligence with ethics and speed with reflection and progress with purpose. IEDC has stood at the intersection of knowledge and humanity. My hope is that the next decades in this leadership education continues to cultivate not only sharper strategists, but deeper thinkers. Leaders who can see beyond immediate metrics. Leader who can imagine new realities and mobilize others toward them. Because ultimately, the future will not be built by those who manage what exists. It will be shaped by those who dare to envision what does not exist yet and have the courage to bring it into form. Thank you.